History remembers dictators for the fear they spread while alive.
But the way they died often tells an even more revealing story. Some died hiding underground as enemies closed in.
Others were dragged into the streets by furious crowds.
A few escaped quietly in comfortable beds, never answering for their crimes. In the end, the most powerful men on earth faced the same fate as everyone else, death, but rarely with dignity. What makes these final moments so haunting is not just how they died, but how power vanished almost overnight. At the end, there were no cheering crowds, no grand speeches, and no armies to protect them.
Only silence, fear, and the collapse of empires.
In April 1945, Berlin was dying.
The thunder of Soviet artillery shook the city day and night as buildings crumbled into dust.
Deep beneath the ruined streets, Adolf Hitler sat in a concrete bunker surrounded by maps that no longer meant anything. Once, he had commanded one of the most powerful military machines in history.
Now, he controlled little more than a few city blocks. Witnesses described him as physically broken, his hands trembling, his posture stooped, his voice weak and uneven. Still, he refused to surrender. On April 29th, in the middle of the night, he married Eva Braun, the woman who had remained loyal to him through the collapse of his empire.
The ceremony was strange and hurried, held while artillery explosions echoed above them.
Less than 24 hours later, the newlyweds were dead. Hitler swallowed poison and shot himself.
Eva Braun took poison beside him.
Their bodies were burned outside in a desperate attempt to prevent them from becoming trophies.
The man who had dreamed of ruling for 1,000 years lasted just 12. Even today, conspiracy theories claim he escaped, but the evidence overwhelmingly shows that he died in that bunker as his empire collapsed. Just days earlier, another dictator met a very different end.
In northern Italy, Benito Mussolini was on the run.
He had once stood proudly on balconies, promising to restore the glory of the Roman Empire.
Now he was disguised as a German soldier, hiding in the back of a convoy trying to escape to Switzerland.
Partisans stopped the convoy and searched the vehicles. Among the soldiers, they found Mussolini.
The once proud dictator barely spoke.
The next day he was executed.
His body was taken to Milan and dumped in a public square.
Crowds gathered quickly. People who had lived for years in fear now vented their rage.
His corpse was hung upside down from a metal beam. It was a brutal symbol the dictator literally turned on his head. Not all dictators die violently.
Some slip away quietly, surrounded by loyal followers who preserve their image long after death. In December 2011, Kim Jong-il died aboard a train traveling through North Korea.
State propaganda had portrayed him as almost superhuman. Official stories claimed he could perform impossible feats and possessed extraordinary abilities. But the official cause of death was something ordinary, a heart attack.
For 2 days, the government kept his death secret. When the announcement finally came, state television showed citizens weeping in the streets. Some collapsed dramatically in grief.
Whether the mourning was genuine or forced remains impossible to know. Power passed smoothly to his son, Kim Jong-un, ensuring that the dynasty continued.
If Kim Jong-il died in controlled ceremony, Joseph Stalin died in isolation, possibly because of the fear he himself had created.
In March 1953, Stalin hosted a late-night dinner with his closest officials. They laughed and drank together, but beneath the surface, they were terrified.
Many of Stalin's associates had disappeared in midnight arrests.
Everyone knew they could be next.
After the dinner, Stalin went to bed. Hours passed. No one heard from him.
Servants and guards suspected something was wrong, but no one dared enter without permission.
Disobeying Stalin could be fatal.
When someone finally entered the room, they found him on the floor, unable to move.
He had suffered a massive stroke.
For hours, he had lain there helpless.
Some historians believe help was deliberately delayed by officials who feared him. Others suspect poisoning. The truth remains uncertain. Several days later, Stalin died. Millions mourned publicly. Privately, many felt relief.
Power can protect a dictator for decades, but it cannot stop betrayal.
In the Dominican Republic, Rafael Trujillo ruled for more than 30 years. He controlled the country like a personal kingdom. Opponents disappeared. Critics were silenced.
But on a dark highway in 1961, his luck ran out. A group of conspirators ambushed his car.
Gunfire shattered the night.
Trujillo was killed in a hail of bullets.
The man who had ordered countless assassinations died in one himself. In Romania, the fall of Nicolae Ceausescu happened with shocking speed. For decades, he ruled with strict control and grand displays of power.
Then protests erupted. Within days, his regime collapsed.
He and his wife, Elena Ceausescu, tried to escape by helicopter.
They were captured, 3 days later, they were put on trial.
The trial lasted less than an hour.
On Christmas Day 1989, they were executed by firing squad. From absolute power to death in just 3 days. Few downfalls in history have been so sudden. In Cambodia, Pol Pot oversaw one of the deadliest regimes of the 20th century.
Millions died from execution, starvation, and forced labor.
When his government fell, he disappeared into the jungle.
For nearly 20 years, he lived as a fugitive. Then in 1998, he died in his sleep. Just days before, there were plans to hand him over for trial. Instead, he escaped justice. Some dictators fall not to rebellion, but to courts of law.
After the Iraq War, Saddam Hussein was captured hiding near his hometown.
He was tried and sentenced to death. In December 2006, he was executed by hanging.
Witnesses reported that he remained calm and defiant to the end. His execution was recorded on a mobile phone and leaked online.
Millions watched the final moments of a man who once ruled a nation with absolute authority.
But perhaps no dictator's end was captured as dramatically as that of Muammar Gaddafi.
For more than 40 years, he ruled Libya with a strange mixture of brutality and eccentricity. In 2011, rebellion spread across the country.
His forces collapsed.
He fled his capital and hid in his hometown. When fighters found him hiding in a drainage pipe, the moment was filmed on cell phones.
The once powerful ruler appeared frightened and confused.
Soon after, he was dead.
His body was displayed publicly.
The man who had ruled for decades ended his life in chaos.
Finally, there are dictators who die quietly without dramatic endings.
Augusto Pinochet ruled Chile for years after seizing power in a violent coup.
Thousands suffered under his regime, yet he died in 2006 in a hospital bed at the age of 91.
He had been investigated and charged with crimes, but never fully tried. Some people mourned him.
Others celebrated his death.
Even in death, dictators divide nations.
What connects all these stories is not just power, but how fragile power truly is.
For years, these men seemed untouchable. They commanded armies, controlled nations, and shaped history. Yet, in the end, every empire collapsed into a final moment. A bunker,
A courtroom,
a hospital bed, a roadside ambush,
a jungle hut.
power made them seem immortal.
Death proved otherwise. The final irony of dictatorship is this. Men who tried to control entire nations could not control their own endings.
Some died in terror, some died in comfort, some died in disgrace.
But none escaped history, because long after dictators are gone, their final moments remain a warning.